Well, I guess I'm just gonna talk. I thought I was gonna maybe try to reconvene the next part of the Ephesians study, but I just don't feel particularly motivated to do that. And I'm like thinking, what, Lord? I've got nothing on my hands right now, nothing in my hands that to put my hand to. Just feel like I'm here waiting again. But anyway, it's like, is my ministry done? Are we done here? Lord, are we going home? I don't think that's it. But I was just thinking it kind of like, you know, where I was about a year ago. I ended up writing a book uh, called The Believer's Call as He Approaches to Watch, to Guard, to Discern, and to Warn. Is that it? To watch, to, yeah, guard, discern, and to warn. And it was four parts. And it was basically a summary of my experience in Christianity, where God had basically taken me on a 25-year tour of the backside of Christianity. And He took me through all kinds of things: charismatic, inner life, reformed, um, nominal kind of Baptist Christianity that pretended to be grace, but it was really just a game. They had like the doctrine of grace, but there was nothing there. And then the NAR, and it's not that I embraced all these things as I went through them. I was always out of sorts, um, against the flow. I was there, and everything in me said this is not right. And then it was to me in the Word to try to discover, well, what is it that they're preaching, and why doesn't it feel right? And as I went through all these things, my knowledge and discernment and my trust in my discernment grew. Um, but yeah, the watch the basically my conclusion was that the Lord is coming, and He's basically done with Christianity. Christianity today has very little bearing on or any relationship to the truth. In fact, almost every truth is leavened and turned upside down on its head. And so I first of all, I saw that the church teaches not to watch, and the Lord told us to watch. So, related to His coming, they tell us that, to watch for Him is to be too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. And it's not for us to know the times and seasons, but we need to be about our Father's business, which means all of their works. And if you talk about the Lord's coming, you're a problem. You're considered a problem. And they teach you to not know. Uh, they teach you to not study. They teach you to not get into the truth. They stigmatize it, and they stigmatize those who would pursue it. And so that first part was about watching. We need to be watchful. And the Lord is going to come on so many like a thief who will not watch. And the reason they're not watching, in terms of the Christians, some of them because of fear, a lot of them have been lulled to sleep in the church system, which is inoculating against the truth. It's like a flu shot where you get just a little bit, enough to inoculate you against the reality. It makes you immune. The second generation Christians have always bothered me. The ones who were raised in church, they think they already know, and yet their illusion of knowledge makes them resistant to the truth, and it's almost impossible to penetrate them. And they're just, I don't know if they're saved or not. In many cases, of course they are, but they fit the characteristics, at least, of the lukewarm. If they're saved, they're saved. But and they resist the truth. And then, so we're called to watch, and God was waking me up to watch again for the umpteenth time in my Christian life. And then that watching leads to a kind of guarding. because what he showed me was that what we're to watch for, and I've said this on my channel, is not just the signs of his coming, but there's thieves and robbers that have entered the sheepfold unaware by another way, apart from him, through their works. And now they are speaking, and their speaking is a kind of thievery to steal your assurance and to steal your sense of the truth of the gospel and your stand in the righteousness of Christ, and to steal your crown. And so as you're under their teaching, which is a kind of beating, week after week after week after week, you're being robbed of your inheritance. In a sense, you're being robbed of that confidence that you would have to stand before the Lord when he comes. And so we're to guard against the thieves. Now, the Lord will come as a thief, but he's not a thief to us. For us, he's our bridegroom. To the world, it'll be like a thief because he stole the only treasure that was worth having out of the world. Just in a heartbeat, he's going to come and grab us. We'll be out, and it'll be like a thief showed up, right? But to the world, so he's a thief to the world. But other than that, the Lord didn't have anything good to say about thieves. And when he talked about thieves in the gospel, he talked about those who come to steal, kill, and destroy, and he said they do it by speaking. They've snuck into the sheepfold, and they're taking us captive. And they're trying to rob your joy, rob your crown, and they do it by putting religious obligations on you. And in doing so, they eventually get your eyes off him, off the gospel, off of your assurance. I mean, in 25 years, I never heard a message on how to be assured that you're saved in any of those systems. There is no assurance. Therefore, there's no crown because there's no confidence. There's nothing. It's terrible. So we're to guard the treasure that we've been given, which is the gospel of our salvation. Hold on. So then, guarding and coming to terms with the truth of how we're saved, how we're assured of our salvation, what grace is, how we're to live, automatically shines a light on everything that differs. And so that leads us to discern. So we're to watch, and that involves watching for his coming and watching against the thieves. And then we're to guarding our treasure, guarding our crown that's been given to us, and not letting anyone steal it, and not letting anyone bring us into bondage or captivity, which then puts us in a position. So by focusing then on the truth, the only way to guard is to get focused on the truth and be laser clear about the truth of the gospel. And then that produces discernment. And in these places, discernment is stigmatized, and the key of knowledge has been taken away. You're never taught how to study the Bible. You're never equipped to function for yourself. You're just there to listen to the spiritual professionals. And then if you discern, you've got two options: either speak up or shut up. Or three options: speak up, shut up, or leave. If you speak up, you'll eventually leave. Because once you start to just speaking the truth, you'll find, even if you're not being negative, you'll be perceived as negative because everything you said contradicts what they're doing in their system. So you can't survive in this system if you're fully clear on the truth. You will eventually just be suffocated there. You'll quench your spirit if you stay and smile and pretend to go along with it, thinking that you're being magnanimous for the sake of the fellowship of the body, and you think you're loving people. Actually, you're damaging your conscience. You're quenching the spirit. But if the only way to stay in a situation like that is to be a people pleaser, and we're not called to do that. So eventually you end up having to leave, So that's really come out of her, my people. This system is fully described in the scriptures in advance. The character and the nature of it and what errors will be in it. And we're not surprised. Once we start to see it in the Word, we go, oh, well, the Lord already told us that this is what Christianity was going to look like, in Matthew 13, the parables, and in the Revelation, the 7 letters to the churches, and then go back and read what happened to the temple system at the time of the apostasy in Jerusalem. It's the same thing repeated. And what happens then is now you're called to warn people. But here's the thing: not a single one of them will listen to you. So while you're in that position of warning people about what you've discerned and what you're guarding against and how you're watching for the Lord's coming, watching against the thieves, you're just ejected. And the only distinction that is beneficial to you is the fact that the Lord puts a mark on you. Because in Jerusalem, God said, put a mark on the foreheads of everyone who mourns over the abominations in Jerusalem. And everyone who did was special to the Lord and was saved from the judgment that was to come. And judgment begins in the house of God. And, I just came to see that these places are barns bundling up the tares for the harvest, and that there is a harvest going on in the West in Christendom. And that, we need to escape the whole thing because it's putting us to sleep, it's drugging us, it's damaging us. We need to get out. And so I wrote this book and had a website and everything. Everybody I showed that thing to, it was exhaustive. I went through all the trends of what's going on in Christianity with the NAR and the Calvinists and the Charismatics and Roman Catholicism and the coming world religion of the Antichrist, all that stuff, and it produced nothing. And it was like, Lord, why did you have me do all this? I mean, I was really frustrated. And I eventually, at the end of last year, it's interesting, I took it down and said, Lord, that was my summary of everything I'd been through. And I just have to take it that it's for my sake, because anybody I gave it to never talked to me again. I mean, it was pretty heavy, I guess, but even people I led to the Lord, eventually, when I give it to them, they either read some of it or, I don't know, they would not talk to me anymore. And it was clearly uncomfortable because I'm condemning the situation that they're in, Well, that didn't produce anything other than, for me, it solidified everything and clarified everything. And so I told the Lord, that's it, I'm retiring that thing. I'm closing the chapter on that part of my life. I was very negative and bitter. I was angry and bitter. This is up until last year. Still just bitter. I knew a lot of grace truth, but I wasn't enjoying it. And then I got under some condemnation and stuff and put the camera in front of my face and started preaching the gospel to myself. And then this channel started out of that, and it's been a grace ride ever since. And now the Lord has shown me good news after good news after good news after good news for a group of people who, from what I can tell, have already come out. I don't have to tell them about that system. They already know. There has already been a harvest. There's already been a division. There's already been a separation. And that book was for me, that was my part of it, to no longer be bewildered about why I can't fit in and what's wrong with me, and stop looking for any rest in these places. My rest has to be in the Lord. And I don't know why it took me so long, other than he wanted me to have a complete tour of the whole thing, show me how fed up I could be with something, And then ever since, it's just been simplicity and good news. People on this channel say, oh, you're funny, you're so lighthearted, or, I'm encouraged by the grace that comes from you. Guarantee you wouldn't be encouraged by anything I said a year and a half ago. And it's not that I wasn't a grace person, it's just I was staring at Babylon and that system, and I was mesmerized by it, and I was just like, John, when he saw Mystery Babylon, it says he was filled with wonder, and it was like he took this book in, and it's sweet to the taste but bitter to his stomach. Just processing it was just like, oh my gosh, what is this monstrosity, God is going to judge that system, and you don't want to be in it. Now, I'm not saying you can't go to a church, but you can't have your hope there. You have to see it as a mission field at best. I go to an institutional church right now, but my fellowship isn't there. I mean, clearly, and for whatever reason, the Lord chose to use YouTube and these social media platforms to produce a fellowship of wandering sheep who've had no shepherd and have been driven out of these places because of what they've seen of the Lord. And that's where we are. And now that harvest is basically complete. The people who are still in the system are staying in the system. They love it. The ones who saw something came out. From what I can see, I feel like they've come out. And now they're being prepared. And we know it could be a matter of weeks now that the grace is now just becoming so abundantly clear to us, and God's healing us and refreshing us and restoring us. I've said there's a season of refreshing before the rapture as if it's in the future. I think it's right now. I think it's happening. He's first firming us up in our knowledge of the truth, and he's leading us as a shepherd into the pasture, into place of rest, where we are just learning to rest in him. We know our work here is done. We know there was never any work we could do anyway. We were never fashioned for this world. We at the end of the age, where the world system has coalesced into its full form, where it's blossomed, into what it is now. No one can survive that. All God can do is take us home. So that's what we're prepared for. I'm gonna have to go now. I've got a 5-year-old wanting to some attention. So talk to you later.